Good afternoon, and thank you for joining today's webinar. I'm Drew Nagel with Reclamation's Office of Public Affairs. Today, we're pleased to host a virtual tour of Reclamation's new interactive Drought web portal. Before we begin, I have a couple webcast items to share. If you experience technical issues, it may be best to join through Microsoft Teams application versus the web browser. Also, please note that this live webinar is being recorded. If you have any objections, please disconnect. A recording of this webinar will be made available for viewing on the Microsoft Streams channel, and a hyperlink was provided in the calendar invite for today. To submit a question, please view the comment bubble with a question mark located at the top right. We'll do our best to answer as many questions as possible at the end of the presentation. Now I'm pleased to introduce today's speaker, Avra Morgan, who helped develop Reclamation's new interactive Drought web portal. Avra is Reclamation's WaterSmart coordinator within the Water Resources and Planning Office. We're also joined by Marquetta McGuire, who is a hydrologic civil engineer in the Technical Service Center, and Nikki McCann, who is also a program analyst within the Water Resources and Planning Office. Now I'll turn it over to Avra, who will present the interactive portal.
Great, thank you, Drew. Again, I'm Avra Morgan, and I work in the Denver office in the Water Resources and Planning Office. And we're going to walk you through our Reclamation's new Drought web portal, and we're going to show you how it works. I'm going to explain some of the context and let you know more about the content. And Nikki McCann is going to kind of drive the portal, and she'll help show us how to maneuver. So first, just a little bit of background. Of course, as you all know, drought conditions in the West are severe right now. We're experiencing drought conditions in approximately 95% of Reclamation's service area. About half of the area is in worse drought conditions, extreme or severe. This portal is a way for Reclamation to communicate with the public and partners and stakeholders about what we're doing to address drought conditions, also to provide some real-time current information on drought conditions, and to highlight some of the ways that Reclamation has some of the tools available to us to address drought. Of course, because we're an agency that was developed to address arid conditions in the West, we have a lot of experience and tools available to help deal with changing hydrologic conditions. So this portal is intended to be one way to share that information with the public who may not be as familiar with all of our operations and activities and programs to address drought. So with that, I think we can go ahead and get started. We're here on the home page for the Drought portal, and you can see across the very top it says Home, Collaboration, Drought Actions, Current Conditions, and Climate Change. Those are the tabs for the portal, so that's how it's organized. It's organized around those 5 pages, and we're going to kind of walk you through what's in these pages. And I guess I should add that we developed this portal just, I think it went live last week, so it's very recent, and we are looking for ways to always keep it fresh and to add information. So as Reclamation employees, if you have ideas on projects, activities, information that you think we should be sharing, we'd be very happy to hear those suggestions. So please feel free to reach out to me if you have ideas like that. So the next level down from that very top banner here, where Nikki's pointer is provides some kind of overarching statements about how we deal with drought, and they for the most part they correspond to the tabs on the portal. So the first one is about collaboration, and that green Learn More button there, if you were to press that, it would take you to the Collaboration tab. And Nikki's going to show you how these move forward. You can click on that black arrow and it moves you to the next one, Comprehensive Approach to Drought. That one, if you click the green arrow, it goes to the Drought Actions. This next one, Drought Information and Current Conditions, goes to the Current Condition page. And then the next one is climate change and understanding how climate change is interacting with drought. And that would take you to the last tab. And there's one more. This one, this part of this banner is intended to share some information about what the administration, the Biden-Harris administration, is doing, and the Department of the Interior to address drought. And Nikki just clicked on that Learn More button, and this gives you a little bit more, gives you further steps that you can take. So you could go to the Collaboration tab or the Drought Actions tab, or you could click one of those 3 bottom arrows to learn more about the Interagency Working Group, to see the Executive Order on Climate Change, or to see the Secretarial Order on Climate Change and Environmental Justice. So just so you know, there's a little bit more information on the administration and the actions that it's taking in that particular Learn More button. Next, going down the homepage, we have the latest news and highlights, and we are keeping this updated. It will include information on our latest funding opportunities. We have some funding opportunities for WaterSmart coming out, an announcement coming out later this week. So we'll be sharing that on this page. We've also got highlights about the 24-month study you can see in the Colorado River Basin, and Tanya Trujillo's visit to the West to address drought. So we're keeping the news stories there tailored to drought and up to date. And if you scroll down on this homepage, you can just see a visual of the different drought actions that Reclamation has available to us. And we're gonna get to those in a minute when we get down to the Drought Actions tab, but it's just a preview for folks that stop on this first page. They could also learn more about how we are adding new water supplies, how we are using reservoir operations, conservation and efficiency planning and science, and other tools to address drought. So with that, I think we can go to the Collaboration page. And this page really highlights some of the projects that Reclamation is funding to address drought. You can see there the statement that's in big letters. As of July, we've selected 125 new WaterSmart projects this year for $64.6 million in federal funding. The 2 images there that you see are clickable, and they get you into different ways of exploring those WaterSmart projects. So that one that Nikki's hovering on right now, that's a featured project tour. And what we did there is we selected projects from WaterSmart that we think are particularly representative of the kinds of things that we can fund to address drought conditions. So this isn't all WaterSmart projects, but it's a snapshot of some of the projects that we fund, and kind of an easy way for the public to explore some of the different projects that we have available under WaterSmart without getting into looking at all the projects that we've funded over the past 10 years. So let's see, I think, Nikki, if you hover over one of the thumbnails, it will show you on the map where that project is. And so that's handy. You can see, you can point to those and it'll pop up on the map. And then if you click on one of those, this gets you into a story map that describes the projects. And if you go down, if you scroll, the location on the map will change to show you where the project is located. And it gives you a project description there and a photo to just provide a little bit more background, a little bit more context about what we mean when we say that these WaterSmart projects can help address drought. So that's our featured project tour for the WaterSmart program. Going back out, we're going to show you, we're going to take just a minute to show you the WaterSmart data visualization. This is something that we have had available, but I'm not sure that everybody knows about it, and it's a handy tool. So this does include all of the projects funded by Reclamation under WaterSmart going back 10 years. And just in case you didn't know, there are ways to filter these projects and learn more about them. So Nikki's going to show us that. She's going to show you how you can pick different programs you want to look at. You could turn those off or filter to just see what are the small scale or what are the Title 16 projects that have been funded. And we're going to use WaterSmart grants to just show you kind of I guess, a little bit more detail, getting down to the next level. If you were to scroll down on the page we were just on, you could click on WaterSmart grants map and it would show you this right here. So these are just the water and energy efficiency grants, the small scale grants, and the water marketing grants under WaterSmart that have been funded to date. And if you click on one of those, if you click on one of them, information pops up about that grant. So if you want to know who the applicant was, the funding amount, the year it was funded, that's available there. And there's a little arrow button Nikki's showing you there, and that means that there was more than one grant in that particular area. So you can cycle through and see all of the grants in those areas. And there's actually a lot of functionality here. So you can search for a location like Yuma. And it will bring you down to that spot. And then you can see up there on the left where the pointer is, all the different projects in that area. And you could also filter by state. So you could look at all of the water and energy efficiency grants and small scale and water marketing for a particular state. And again, you can filter. You can turn on and off the program layers, so you can, if maybe you're interested in water marketing only, you could turn off the other layers and just see where those projects are. So that's the WaterSmart data visualization tool. Hopefully you all have checked it out before. If not, it's a good way to work with stakeholders if they're interested in seeing what's been funded in their area, or if you want to see that. If you go down a little bit, we also have a featured project tour from the Research and Development Office, and this includes their desalination and water purification program projects. It also includes some internal reclamation research projects and the prize competition projects that have been funded. So this is, again, just same functionality as the one that Nikki demonstrated above that shows you click on the map and you get into a story map that has descriptions of these projects. And they are projects that we think are good representations of projects that address drought. And the map will move along with the project description. So with that, going over to the drought actions page. So these blue boxes here at the top are kind of a summary of the different ways that reclamation might try to build resiliency to drought and address drought conditions, including developing new water supplies, using our reservoir operations, hydropower optimization, conservation and efficiency, water reuse, diversifying supplies, and planning and science. And if you scroll down a little, we have the ability to look at examples of these various mechanisms. So we have an explanation here on this first part about how reservoir operators might use reservoir operations to manage water during times of shortage. And then if you click on that explore button, you can see that we have a few examples here of how reservoir operations might be used to manage water for drought purposes. We have, let's see, we have the Shasta Dam temperature control. We have a water rights change petition to modify operations. We have the Washita Reservoir Operations pilot study and the forecast informed reservoir operations at Folsom. And if you would just click on that explore for the Folsom example, you can see that it brings up more information about what forecast informed reservoir operations are, how we're using them to to be able to use recent, or I guess, real-time forecast information and short-term forecast information to inform how we operate reservoirs in some cases where the facilities are conducive to this and where the laws allow us to do so. And our example here is at Folsom Reservoir, where the water control manual was recently changed to allow us to use forecast-informed reservoir operations. So this is just to show you that for each of these, or for a lot of these examples, you can kind of go a little deeper. You can click that blue button and it'll get you to additional information. So you can go back out and let's see, why don't we go to the science and planning under drought actions? Yeah. If you scroll, yeah. So this is just another example. Under our planning and science, we have a couple of examples here. On the left, we have the Washington State Department of Ecology recently updated their drought plan, their statewide drought plan, using water smart funding, and they actually identified some triggers for drought that allowed them to make a statutory change in the state of Washington to change the sort of the onset of drought, the definition of the onset of drought, that allows them to be more proactive there. So it's kind of an interesting story about how planning can actually lead sometimes to administrative or even legal changes that can help folks build resiliency in advance of a drought. And on the right, you can see one of our floating reservoir evaporation pans. And this is just an example of how we are using science and tools to gather information that helps us better manage water, in this case, to measure evaporation from open water sources. There's lots of these pans deployed on reservoirs in the Southwest that are being used to collect more accurate and real-time information about reservoir operations there. So I think that's all. You can see that Nikki was hovering over the Explore button. If you were to click on that, you would see, you could go a level deeper and see a little bit more information. And many of these examples have that ability. So moving on to the current conditions. This current conditions page is intended to provide some real-time information, some regularly updated information to our stakeholders and partners. And we're excited about this first dashboard here. This is the current reservoir conditions dashboard. And this is developed internally by Reclamation. And we'll go into this in just a minute. We'll show you first the other information that's on this page, and then we'll circle back. So the rest, these tabs below that Nikki is sharing with you here, draw from external sources to provide current real-time information on drought. And these are updated weekly. So you can see the US drought monitor there, and it shows the 11 Western states. And we're talking to them about trying to get the 17 Western states shown in one image. And you can see what the conditions are currently. You can see that was updated on July 27th. I believe it's updated weekly, and it will stay updated on this portal as well. And you can always click on that and filter by your state, of course. Going down a little farther, we've got some interactive, kind of interesting ways to explore what drought looks like over the past year. One of these on the left shows the drought intensity over time. That's since 2000, and it'll kind of show you it plays out the different drought maps as they have looked since 2000 to the present. And on the right, we have the drought map as it has appeared in the past year, so over 2020. And I think Nikki's going to play that for you. You can just see how there's a time slider on the bottom that's showing you the progression of how drought has changed in the West over the past year. So it's kind of interesting to see it get worse, or scary, I guess. as well. Next, we have some indicators, so drivers of the current drought. Of course, above average temperatures and below average precipitation are the main drivers of the drought that we're seeing right now. And these two images here are updated weekly, and they show you the anomalies, as we say. So they show you the degrees Fahrenheit above average in the left image there for temperature, and how the temperature has been above average for the time frame shown here, which is 90-day time frame. And on the right, they show the percent average of precipitation. So the red colors mean that, we're in the lower range there, if you can see the bar for average precipitation, around the 50% to 70 or 50, 25 even to 50% range in lots of areas. And again, those get updated regularly, and the updates are visible on the portal. Going down one more, this is pulling from NOAA, a NOAA resource, and this shows stream flow levels at, or water supply forecasts, I'm sorry, at different locations from the NOAA River Forecast Centers. And it is also interactive. You can click on this and get to NOAA's information and see more detailed information for your particular area. And then all the way at the bottom here, we just have some other resources. You can get to the Drought Monitor on the left, or you can get to drought.gov, which is NIDIS's website. NIDIS is part of NOAA, which has a lot of good resources on drought as well. Now going back up to the top, Nikki's going to show us this Reservoir Conditions dashboard. So again, this is something that that was developed for the portal. And we have selected major reclamation reservoirs. So not all reclamation reservoirs are shown here, but we've selected some of the major ones to show current reservoir storage levels. And you can see that on the left, there's 44 reservoirs shown, and 6 reservoirs are flagged. The flagged in this situation means that they are the lowest that they've been in 30 years. Or for the time period that we're measuring, which may be a little bit different for some of the reservoirs. And you can see that scale at the top left that shows what the colors mean, right? So current storage levels as a percent of average. And you can see that goes from sort of good to bad there in blue to red. And then the different sizes of the different reservoirs. And let's see, Nikki, can you click on one of the reservoirs so we can show just show that information comes up here. One way to get to the information is to click on these dots. And another way is to use the table on the right. But here, yeah, that table right there also lists the reservoirs individually, and you can see the ones that are flagged with those swirly red dots. So here we have Lake Powell, and it shows you that storage at Lake Powell was 7,847,000 acre feet on August 2nd. So this gets updated daily, actually, but I think it's always about a day behind or a couple days behind. And that represents 49% of the typical storage level for this date in the past 30 years. So it gives you some indication of what it means. We're not just saying what the storage level is, but we're trying to provide some context for what it means. And you can see that in red on that pop-up, it says this storage is the lowest value observed on August 2nd. So the lowest value on this date in the past 30 years. I think I misspoke earlier when I explained that. And we are working, just by the way, we are working with the Lower Colorado folks to make sure that we represent this information in the same way that they do. They talk about live storage in their region, and so we're making some adjustments as we go to make sure that the way that we're showing the reservoir levels matches with how the regions like to show their reservoir levels. Let's see, Nikki, if you go to Shasta or one of those over there, yeah. you can see that there's an arrow there, and that's so that you can scroll forward because, again, like the WaterSmart visualization, there's more than one reservoir in this location. And so it is going to allow you to cycle through and see information for all of these reservoirs. And they're just pausing on Shasta. So storage at Shasta was at 1,445,000 acre feet on August 1st, which represents 46% of typical storage level for this date, based on the past 30 years of record. So that's the information that you get for each reservoir that pops up. And this one also is at the lowest value observed for this date in the past 30 years. So I believe this is the first time we've had this reservoir level information collected in one spot and available for the public. So we're happy to have that here. I think that was all that I needed to share. Oh, you can filter by state. I forgot to mention that. So you don't have to go back and do it, but if you wanted to, you could filter those by state. And then going to the climate change page, last but not least. Some of you will recognize these dashboards. We recently completed our 2021 Secure Water Act report to Congress, and that's a report we do every 5 years, and we summarize the work that Reclamation has done to assess the impacts of climate change to water resources, and also to work with our stakeholders to address those impacts. And in this particular report, we part of our analysis focused on drought, and we used both paleohydrology based in tree rings to go back in time and look at wet and dry periods over the past several hundreds of years, in some cases thousands of years, using paleohydrology. We also used future projections of climate change to go forward in time and look at the projected changes, and did an analysis of how drought might change over time. So these are interactive, and you can go in and filter. So we're going to just show you real quick here. So this is the temperature. This is an interactive way to explore how temperature may increase over time. And Nikki's going to select a river basin here. You could also select a state, but if you select a river basin, it'll filter down to that river basin. And the horseshoes that you see on the right, those show you two different scenarios for future climate projections. One is based on a lower scenario of using a lower greenhouse gas emissions scenario, and one is based on a higher scenario, higher greenhouse gas emissions. And you can see the average temperature change projected for the time period is 4.3 degrees Fahrenheit under the lower scenario and 5.6 degrees Fahrenheit under the higher scenario. So it's just a good way to kind of get your hands on some of this information that came from the Secure report. Of course, the more detailed analysis is always available, but these dashboards are interactive and they let you hone in on the basin or the state that you're interested in. We're going to take a quick look at the drought severity dashboard. This is another dashboard that's made available on the portal, the Drought portal. And you can see that here, this shows our analysis using PDSI, the Palmer Drought Severity Index, which is based on information including soil moisture, temperature, and precipitation. It's a common measure of drought. And this analysis shows changes to drought severity over time, going back in what we're calling the historical period, going all the way back to 1473 using paleohydrology, the tree ring reconstructions of PDSI, and then looking ahead in the future to see how PDSI is projected to change using the two climate change scenarios. So you can see that in the historical period, the average severity of drought was at -1.4. And if you look at that scale there for drought severity, it'll show you the lighter colors, the -1 being less severe to -3 being more severe because soil moisture is lower. And then if you look over at the climate change scenarios on the right, you'll see that it is more severe Interestingly, not more severe under the higher scenario necessarily, and that is because we're looking at longer periods of drought in those climate change projections, and also soil moisture may reach a point at which the lower and higher scenario might not make that much of a difference because it's already at a certain point threshold of dryness. But you can see here, and you could go into a particular river basin if you wanted, or a western state, and see how the results change for your basin. So we've got the Sacramento San Joaquin River Basin selected here. Average drought severity, negative 1.5, and looking forward to the future under either scenario, we're seeing a negative 2.2. So the upshot is that the findings in the secure report show that droughts are projected to become more severe, longer duration, more frequent than droughts that we've seen in the past, even on average, even using the distant past from the paleohydrology reconstructions. Nikki, if you'll go back to the climate change page, we'll just show folks what's down there. So we've got precipitation and temperature dashboards that you can explore. Going down, we've got drought duration and drought severity. Going down even more, you can see our irrigation demand projections, and that's for the 2021 Secure Water Act report. We looked at how climate change may impact demands for urban irrigation for turf grass. In the past, we have also looked at climate change impacts on evapotranspiration. We've got access to some of that information here. And on the very bottom right there, you can see the 2021 Secure Water Act report portal. There's a whole portal dedicated to that secure report. So if you wanted to get deeper into the findings in the climate change analysis, you can go straight to that portal and explore more. And with that, I think that concludes my overview of the drought portal. And we will turn it back to Drew Nagel to get us to the next part.
Thanks, Oliver. So we have a number of questions, and we'll ask the presenters to keep their answers brief so we can get through a number of them in a short period of time. The first question is, just curious if there's been any additional research to place floating solar systems at the reclamation reservoirs to also help lessen evaporation.
So there any further research? I am aware that they are deploying a lot of these floating reservoir evaporation pans in the Southwest, like at Cochiti and Elephant Butte, and a number of different reclamation reservoirs there. I don't know if there's been an expansion of that yet, but oh, we actually took that one out. I was going to say, I think there might be more information in the featured project tour on those floating evaporation pans. So you can check that for more detail. Yeah, sorry, I don't have any newer information, and I know that that is ongoing right now. So it might be the latest on that particular technology. I know a lot of research underway on different ways to measure evaporation. That's only one mechanism. There's plenty more to talk about with reservoir evaporation and the latest tools.
Great, next question. Avra, others will know better than me, but when we explain current conditions binationally, we also include reservoir storage. We do not rely exclusively on the drought monitor. Are there plans to include some of the messaging we use in Lower Colorado on this topic to the drought monitor page, for example, reservoirs?
Well, that maybe came before we had the reservoir, the demonstration of the dashboard that Nikki showed us with the reservoir levels. So I would say that is where we're presenting information on reservoir levels. And as I mentioned, we are trying to work with the regions to make sure that we represent it in a way that's consistent with how they represent it in their regions.
Great, next question. Who should we contact to ensure that the information within our area is being accurately mapped on these interactive tools?
Me. So please contact Avra Morgan. My email is AOMorgan. If you don't put the O in there, it'll go to Alex Morgan. So aomorgan@usbr.gov, or you can find me in Outlook, I'm sure. Please do follow up if you have questions or want to talk about any of the information being represented here.
Great. Next question. You may have answered this, but how does the Drought Monitor tool interface with RISE, Reclamation's information sharing environment?
I don't have a good answer for that. I might have to get back to you. I'm not exactly sure. The Drought Monitor, I do know, is an independent website. It's not run by Reclamation, right? It's external to Reclamation, and it's maintained by University of Oklahoma. I think I'm getting that right. So it is something that's been in place for years, and it's updated by that organization. We don't update it ourselves. So maybe that answers the question.
Okay. Next question is, when explaining the storage amount, you mentioned that some regions want to use live storage information. If each region uses different terms, won't that inconsistent practice get confusing to users of the program?
Yeah, so we're trying to sort that out. That's a very perceptive question. It is hard to kind of characterize the reservoir levels in different ways, or the reservoir storage in different ways. You know, so far, I think we're working on ways to display it under using a couple of different approaches that could be applied across all of the reservoirs, and that would, you know, that'd be using multiple approaches to convey the information, with one of those approaches being the way that the region normally does it. We're working on it, and you're right. It is hard to show. You know, we're trying to compare apples to apples, but there's always a few scenarios that are special that we do have to kind of take an extra effort to explain. But in general, we're shooting for consistency, and so we're going to try to find ways that will work for everybody.
Okay. Next question. We'll make this the last question, and if we didn't get to your question today, please feel free to email publicaffairs@usbr.gov, and we'll sure forward it to the correct presenter to answer your question. So the last question, Avra, is: are there any plans for, quote, pumped hydro storage to optimize hydropower generation and to shift storage of solar and wind power to deliver on demand or demand shifted hydropower generation?
Well, I wish I had one of the folks from the hydropower office. That's a really good question, and I think I'll have to get back to you on that one. The hydropower example that we do have on the portal is Hydros. It's their optimization program that they use to make their hydropower generation more efficient. And you can see that under the drought actions under the hydropower example, but I don't have a specific answer to that. I did get a little bit more information from Dagmar Llewellyn, who's in our Albuquerque area office, about the question that we got earlier on the floating solar panels. And she says she thinks that the question was about the floating solar panels, not the evaporation pans that I was talking about, and that those solar panel arrays have the potential to decrease reservoir evaporation. And the Albuquerque area office is actually working with the Power Resources Office and NREL on a project to develop guidance to deploy potentially those floating solar arrays on reclamation reservoirs. And that report is in final review right now. So I apologize if I misunderstood the question the first time, and hopefully with a little help from Dagmar, I gave you more directed information on that.
So at this time, I would like to thank Avra and Nikki for today's virtual presentation of the Drought Web Portal. As a reminder, a recording of this webcast will be posted to Reclamation's Microsoft Stream channel, and the hyperlink is located in the calendar invite. And at this time, I'd like to thank all viewers for joining today's webcast.